think I went live early. All right. Hey guys, we are live. Go ahead and let me know in the chat when you can hear me. I always forget how long that delay is there. Also, I had a problem with the sound in my last live, so let me know when you guys can hear me. I'm gonna hop on the video. You can hear me. Hi, Kylie. Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. Hi, welcome everybody. We do have a couple of new members, so really quick, I just want to give a little spiel. Hi. Well, the sound is on. I had everything set up early too because Mercury is in its shadow period and is about to be going retrograde, and I have been having so many technological problems, which I always do, but it's like really bad lately. So I set up everything early and still, of course, I'm having problems. Okay, so welcome to the Lions. For those of you watching this later on YouTube, hello. I have a couple of resources linked here, which we're going to get to here in a second. But I do want to just kind of draw attention to what is linked for the patrons over on Patreon. So we have our calendar, which we're going to get to once we go over to the slides. You guys have a PDF of this. The one that is currently linked to the post is missing a couple of things. It's missing all of our live streams. It's also missing the Aquarius new moon on the 31st. So there's an updated version that I haven't linked yet. I'll link it after this. But that is the one that is going to be here on the slide, so you can take a screenshot. The resolution of the slide is not great. So those of you on YouTube, if you can't read it, I'm sorry. But you could join Patreon for like $3 a month and you'll get access to this. There's also the Apprentice cheat sheet. The Apprentice cheat sheet is linked below every single post for those of you who are new. I highly recommend printing that out and putting it in like one of those plastic sleeves and just having it with you whenever we're doing this. Because you guys know I don't want to be like a guru or like, I don't want you listening to me. Like, I want to teach you guys how to look at your own chart and find your own stuff, because I really am a firm believer that astrology is a personal practice and you shouldn't be depending on an astrologer. I really want to teach you guys to kind of do what I'm doing, and the Apprentice cheat sheet is one of the places I learned. I actually used that when I was learning. I didn't make it. You could find it on the internet. It's pretty easy. And I think those are all my announcements. So I'm going to hop over here. Okay, hold on. It looks like my sound is not working over on the slide, so just give me 1 second while I hook up the sound. But yes, Mercury is in its shadow period. He stations retrograde on the 14th in the sign of Aquarius, which literally rules like advanced technology, so it would rule like computers. Gemini and Sagittarius both rule like the internet, and Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini, rules tech. But Aquarius and Uranus rules like high technology, so it's going to be erratic. Oh, and it's ruled by Uranus normally, so it's a very, just expect the unexpected. Okay, give me 1 second. It's called audio capture 2. Okay. Hello? Okay, there. You guys should be able to hear me. Go ahead and let me know if you guys can hear me. Hopefully you guys can hear me. My little sound thing is going up. All right, so you guys know I always like to try to encode as much into, thank you, Kylie. I always like to try to encode as much into the first slide as I can. One, for me to kind of tie together all the train of thoughts that I'm having as I'm like compiling the calendar and like trying to kind of like sit with the energy of the month. And also for me to go back at when I'm looking back to like reference, you know, the partner new moon to a full moon, or like what was happening during certain transits, and then it's like a snapshot of what's going on. So I'm gonna move my face here though while we talk about this. You guys can go ahead and take a screenshot if you're a screenshotty type person. This will help you to remember what this month is about. If you watched my video last month, we talked about the Pandora-Atlantis conjunction that happened. And I talked about this Atlantean box of secrets opening. Well, this month, those asteroids are a key player as well, because the box is now opened and the transiting south node, which is our, I'm gonna put my face back, guys. The transiting south node, which is our like open portal. Those are where the moon and sun's orbit cross during eclipses, and it is currently at this very critical degree. It is shifting from the 29th degree, from the 0 degree of Gemini and Sagittarius, which is known as a very critical degree in astrology. The 0 degree mark and the 29 degree mark are very strong energies, the beginning and start of each sign. And then it's shifting into new signs. It's shifting into the signs of Scorpio and Taurus. And so this is going to be a big shift that we're feeling this month, and that's happening right on top of this Pandora-Atlantis conjunction. And so it's going to be a key player this month. So that's why we have this beautiful picture of Pandora opening her box of all that is repressed and letting it out into the world for us to see and deal with and integrate. Being as though it is the south node, this is going to have a lot to do with the past and the karma connected to the past, but also the wisdoms and the wisdom and the lessons connected to the past. That is what the south node means natally. You can look at your south node in your chart, and it's a place that astrologers look at for like past life influence. It's said to be everything we accrued in a past life. So all of the good stuff, all of the initiations we passed, and all of the great lessons we learned, and all of the knowledge we unlocked, and all of that great stuff, but also all of our habits and all of our karmic patterning. And when it's transited in our chart, we have to deal with that stuff. But when we do, we get to unlock what our soul like already knows. And then it just comes on as like a tidal wave of like remembrance. And so this point is on top of this Atlantis Pandora conjunction. And so we're really going to be forced to deal with the karma connected to this. So really quick, I'm going to, this is a picture of Ceres, which we have been discussing the asteroid of Ceres and the archetype of her and Demeter, which are the same archetype, just a Greek and Roman version, pretty heavily over on Patreon. And the concept of the Earth Mother and the divine feminine in many of her manifestations, whether it be her earthly manifestation, her primordial manifestation, her repressed manifestation, the crone, the maiden, the mother, whatever it may be. We've been really focusing on all these different manifestations of this divine feminine energy during these darker half of the year, of course, here in the Northern Hemisphere. It is opposite for you. I keep rolling over my charger. Hold on. Oh, my phone. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, which Western tropical astrology is tied to the seasons, but it's tied to the seasons for us here in the Northern Hemisphere. So I said this in my last Patreon video. I really think that you guys down under, and I know there are many of you on Patreon who are from Australia. You guys need your own system. I don't know how or what, but those of you who are astrologers down there, we need to ponder this. We need to ponder this for you guys. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about the asteroid belt and how I believe that the asteroid belt is very much connected to this Atlantean karma and how it could very well have been a destroyed planet during that time. And so we have a whole slide where we're going to touch on that. But it just says the asteroid belt, and the mother, that's a picture of Ceres. She is actually the biggest asteroid in the asteroid belt, the Earth Mother. And oh, Kylie says that she was digging deeper into her before this and how it relates to my chart. Oh my gosh, I love that. And then those of you over on Patreon, you guys know, but those of you on YouTube, we dive really deep. We've been diving really deep. Our moon videos have been deep, deep, deep dives into archetypes and esoteric concepts. And so this video is going to be more chill. We're just going to dive into the chart and just see what comes through. I don't have any sort of like heavy research or like deeply like profound insights that have come through. It's just kind of been what I've been feeling. But there is a lot of stuff going on over on Patreon, and I've been making these really detailed PDFs with tons of research into these archetypes and my stream of thought, and you know, the books I'm referencing and different videos or articles that may help you guys dive deeper into all these concepts. And that is, of course, available over on Patreon. So the link to join is below. Anyway, we're going to be talking a lot about the asteroid belt and how it very much is connected to all of these repressed, I can't point at this on these slides, that's the problem doing it over here. All of those repressed aspects that are in that box that are usually deeply feminine in nature. Most of the strong female archetypes from mythology are not represented in the planets. We have the moon, and we have Venus, and we've been talking a lot over on Patreon. My last video dove heavily into how Saturn should be considered a feminine planet as well, and I dove deep into why and how it even ties back to like the Hellenistic period in it being a feminine expression ruling Capricorn, the earth sign, which is a feminine expression, and how the planets would be balanced and all this jazz. But anyway, for the most part, where we're able to access these very profound and repressed feminine aspects are in the asteroid belts. And the asteroids are not used very often, but if you've been following my work, you can see there's something to these. I don't know what it is, but every time something is in the focal point of like, or like in the front of my focus, like whatever archetypes are prevalent at that time, or even in our reality, if you've been following along with my work over on Instagram and in Discord, I've been diving into like the CERN asteroid, and the sky is connected to us. This concept of as above, so below is really the only thing that makes sense to me. And when we project these archetypes, or anybody projects these archetypes up onto the stars, whatever culture it may be, those points start to take on these characteristics. And so we've been talking a lot about reclaiming these fractured archetypes, and we're going to touch on that here tonight too. But the asteroid belt is very much connected to this Atlantean karma and cataclysm and destruction, and all of what was swept under the rug afterwards that needs to be dealt with now. And some of the energies that I feel are going to be prevalent this month, I'm just going to read this. So subconscious reflections, we're going to touch on that a lot, and the cards I pulled like literally say those exact words. The forest, that card came out too. The sea, the mountain, the collective, and me. We're going to talk about how this is Capricorn season, but we're going to be having a Cancer full moon. So it is the depths of the subconscious that is being illuminated this month. And we're also going to talk about how it's kind of up for debate on where the upper world is and where the underworld is and how they are kind of one and the same. And astrological charts were even flipped if you go back far enough. So the subconscious is very, very, very much going to be all around us this month. And we're going to touch on this a lot more for the Aquarius new moon at the end of the month. This concept of the hero's journey and the return back home. I wrote here that we're at the summit of this hero's journey. I wish I could change that now to the summit and the abyss, because we are traveling both to the top of the castle on the hill and the depths of the forest. We're diving deep into the depths of the sea and climbing the tops of the mountain simultaneously. And so we're at the summit and the valley of the hero's journey, and he must go both places, but then he has to return home with all it is that he learned while traveling that very strange realm of his subconscious reflections, right? Speaking very strongly to the heroine's journey as well. But then we have to come back home to the collective, and that's Aquarius. During Aquarius season is when we merge with others. Aquarius rules groups, it rules the collective, it rules brotherhood, and rules humanity. And Capricorn, that's what January is going to be, a mix between Capricorn season and then shifting into Aquarius season. Capricorn is the peak of our quest. It's the top of the chart, it's the top of the mountain, it's where we reach whatever it is we've been climbing towards and hopefully obtain. Like I said, at the peak and the depths, it will require both. And then we have to return back home with all of this wisdom, and we have to share it, and we have to integrate back with society and be of service in on some sort of like humanitarian front, which is all Aquarius vibes. So we're going to be talking about that, but that is going to be a whole video in and of itself later this month. And then the concept of riddles. The month starts off with the sun conjunct the Sphinx, and it really starts off with this kind of just illusionary realm. It's confusing, but it's also very enlightening. And so it's like traveling through that forest of illusions to the truth that we'll ultimately find in the depths, right? Probably ideally around the Cancer full moon this month, which illuminates that depths for us. And moments of brilliance, we are going to have moments of brilliance. And Mars, so I said here, our primal spark of life aligns with the galactic center. So Mars will actually be aligning with the galactic center this month, giving us some sort of just like boost. But it's happening right around when Mercury goes retrograde. So we have to kind of figure out how to navigate this boost. And I think it's going to require us to go inward before we can then return outward and be of service to the collective. But this this month actually has 2 new moons. So we had one on the 2nd in Capricorn, which we just dove very heavily into over on Patreon. And then we'll have another one on the 31st in Aquarius. And of course, it's the start of a new Muggle year, a new Gregorian and calendar year. And so we're heading in new directions, not to mention the fact that the nodes are shifting into new signs. And so the focus is going to be on new areas of our life. So that's like a nutshell of where we're going. Kylie says, I just got a new magical sacred sea deck and my heart's in the forest. When it feels good, I'll pull some cards for Discord. Oh yes, that sounds amazing. Oh, I forgot to make it so I can click through this last. Mercury, why? Mercury is my chart ruler. Like the planetary ruler of your first house. So whatever your rising sign is, the planet that governs that. So if you were like a Libra rising, your chart ruler would be Venus. I'm a Virgo rising, so my chart ruler is Mercury. Mercury retrogrades, like, I love them because so much comes through for me and I see things so clearly at the end of it. The only issue I have is the tech problems, but it's like so bad. It's like so bad. Okay, hold on. Look what's happening right here. Okay, hold on. Okay. I have to make it so that I can click through these slides. I just have to click one thing right here and do this. It doesn't hold the settings in this software, and you have to do it every single time you go live. I don't know why it's set up like this. Slideshow, slideshow. Where is it? Okay. Jesus. Okay, that should work. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a picture of our calendar. If you are a YouTuber, you can go ahead and take a screenshot of this. Like I said, those of you on Patreon, you have this. I'll upload the edited one later, but this is the right one. We're not really going to touch on anything here other than the key to the madness. So for those of you who don't know how to read this chart, we have a couple of things going on here. So if you see over on the left-hand corner, under the first Sunday, it says a key to the madness. That's just a color code, a Gemini rising, so Mercury, Mercury too. The pink ones are live streams. We had one just the other day for the Capricorn moon. We're going to have one for the full moon on the 13th because I want to do it before Mercury actually stations retrograde in hopes that there are less issues. On the 22nd, we're going to do a Cosmic Kids game night where we all get together and play one of those try to guess the word games on Zoom. If you don't have kids but you want to come play with us, you're more than welcome. We'll send a link over on Discord. And then for the Aquarius new moon, the live stream is on the 27th. The green ones are like the weird transits. I'm calling them the galactic and stellar transits. It's like stuff to black holes or asteroids or stars. The stuff that most astrologers aren't talking about. Those are the green ones. The light blue ones are the lunations. The yellow ones are major transits. So like conjunctions, sometimes squares, oppositions between planets that are like more significant as opposed to like a sextile or a trine, something that's like more easygoing. The black ones are like really big shifts, a planet shifting signs or a planet stationing retrograde or direct, like really big shifts, not just a little planetary action in the sky, but like a full-blown shift into something different. And the blue ones at the bottom with the white writing are our lunar transits. We have been doing this over here on Patreon for a while. Is following the moon transit throughout the month as it transits each and every star in the sky because it goes all the way around the zodiac. It takes 28 days for it to go all the way around the zodiac, about a month. While the sun takes a year. So every month, the moon, our closest psychic body, is making connections with all these stars. And I originally started doing this because I was trying to find a way to integrate the far reaches of outer space with the close reaches of where we're at and integrate these together. Also, I was trying to find a way to work with the moon and I guess like a more ascended fashion, I would say. And I was getting really frustrated with the straight up psyop that I believe is going on in the New Age movement of just the fear of the moon or the moon being fake or being just bad in some way and trying to find a way to work with it. And after a while, I came across in several books now that this is actually one of the most ancient forms of astrology. So I already knew that fixed stars, I dove heavy into this in last month's video if you guys want to check that out. But I already knew that fixed star astrology is the oldest form of astrology. Before any of these extremely ordered 12 sign or however many sign systems were invented or even the constellations were configured and decided upon, the stars and conjunctions to the stars were really what's all that was used. And so I've been really leaning into more of that. I think it takes a lot of the dogma out of it. And the lunar zodiac is just as ancient. And it makes a lot of sense. We dove into it in the last video, so I highly recommend watching that if you want to know more. But it's something I am going to keep doing. And I think that this calendar here, if you follow along with the blue transits at the bottom where the moon is, and all of the other stuff, which is where the sun and the planets are, we are navigating through a lunar sidereal month and a solar tropical year. And we are integrating like all of the like the polarities and systems kind of together and like merging it into one, so we don't have to pick. Which, if you've been in the astrological community for a minute, I'm sure you've seen like people love to argue and pick and deem something as true or perfect or the way to do it, and you know, I'm just not about that. I think there's validity in all of it, and so I'm really trying to find a way to merge it, you know, merging the East and the West into one. Okay, so really quick, I want to touch on the asteroid belt, okay? We are going to be diving much deeper into asteroids through Patreon and Discord. It's funny, the day last month that Pandora and Atlantis conjunct, I got software. I got astrology software that has access to all like 22,000 asteroids, and so I can much more easily locate these asteroid alignments. And so I joked with Sharon at the same time that she was typing, Pandora's box of, the Atlantean box of secrets literally opened. I was like, you're right, it did. And I have these diagrams here just to kind of prove a point. I can't point at any of these, but as you can see, the asteroid belt sits between Mars and Jupiter. That planet up there that I said before is Ceres, is actually the largest planet, the largest asteroid in the asteroid belt. She's actually considered a minor planet, a dwarf planet. And then there are thousands and thousands of others, and they're constantly being discovered. And it is believed by some people that it used to be a planet that was destroyed. NASA says there's no way it could have been a planet, because if you took all the asteroids in the asteroid belt and like merged them together, there's only enough mass to be like the size of our moon. Our moon is actually pretty big, but to be the size of our moon. Ceres is the biggest asteroid there, is like 1.3% size of our moon. So she's quite small. But so is Pluto. And as we know, as astrologers, Pluto is massive when it comes to astrology. He means business. His size, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Also, they don't really take into account that if it was a destroyed planet, so as you see, it sits between Mars and Jupiter. It is widely believed in the conspiratorial realm that Mars used to be inhabited and was destroyed through some sort of war, and that's why where it gets its warring like archetype. That's why Mars is the god of war. That's why it represents war, it governs war, and our aggression and our primal energies of destruction and fire, right? I've also floated the idea, I wonder, like, why does the zodiac start with Mars? Why doesn't it start with like the sun or even like the moon or something? Why does it start with Aries and Mars? And I thought, like, maybe it originated on Mars. Maybe astrology originated on Mars when we lived on Mars, and it like made its way through Atlantis and all of the, mystery schools, and now we have a different version of it. But that's why it kind of starts with Mars. I don't know. It's a theory. But let's say Mars was a thriving civilization a long time ago, and it was having some sort of like space war with someone else. And maybe there was a planet that used to sit between Mars and Jupiter. There's so much space there. Astronomers really say there should be a planet there. Those should have merged into a planet at some point, or at least gone and been another moon of Jupiter or something like that. And let's say that planet was exploded, it blew up, right? I'm sure they had some really advanced technology in order to blow up a whole planet. A lot of that would be turned to dust. It would be like obliterated. So of course you can't take into account how much matter is actually there and be like, well, it's not enough to make a planet. Well, yeah, if it blew up, a lot of it would be gone. And a lot of it would be sucked into Jupiter, which is a big gas planet. And then it would destroy Mars through its atmosphere and probably shooting a lot of asteroids at it. And then Mars would be destroyed. And then we would go and live on Earth. And maybe that's why the sun is so dangerous for us. I mean, if you can get burnt by the sun. Like it seems like we live too close to our star for us to just like live out there without a lot of shelter. But on Mars, maybe we'd be more adapted, and maybe that's why all the elites are trying to get back there. But yeah, just maybe. So anyway, I believe that this happened perhaps during Atlantean times. And I think that integrating the asteroid belt is part of our karmic duty to remember all of this. I also find it interesting that the asteroid belt is composed of mostly female archetypes, although they have blanketed it with even more male archetypes. Like the balance of it is just astronomical. It's, don't quote me on this, but let's say it's like 3/4 male asteroids and a quarter female archetypes. But it's the only place we can really find ourselves. And they also are coding other very important things in there. Like I said, CERN has an asteroid. As above, so below. When you put these thought forms out there, they exist. I'm a firm believer that if enough people believe something, it exists in the metaphysical realm. That is why faith is so important. I believe in thought forms. I believe that if enough people believe in an archetype or a story or a myth or a legend or whatever it may be, that exists somewhere, especially if you are imprinting that as like a whole culture believing something on the sky, because as above, it's so below. And I think that is why they hide the asteroids so much from us. It's so hard, you guys, to find credible asteroid information. I have 3 different astrology softwares, all of which have different asteroid lists. And so I can't even, like, I have to use so many different things. And this software that I just got, like, I had to send a guy a check in the mail. I have not done that in so long. I had to like write a letter and send him a check in the mail so that he could send this to me. It was very hard, very difficult. Okay, we'll come back to those. Let's go to the chart. Oh yeah, my Mars theory. I have a lot of those. I don't share them all because like we'd be here forever. But I do believe that this asteroid belt is part of what we are here to do. And I think it has a lot to do with this. Okay. We're keeping it chill this month, guys. Hello? Okay, I think you can hear me. I really thought I had everything. I was like, oh, look, I have all this time to spare. Everything is put together. I got it all figured out. Haha, Mercury, you trickster. I outsmarted you. And he's like, oh, yeah? The thing with Mercury retrograde, though, is they're only, because he's a trickster. He's not really trying to fuck shit up for you. So there are always like small little minor occurrences that can be fixed. Like they're just like little annoyances. It's so Mercury. Okay. You can hear me now, right? I think you can hear me now. Okay, so Kylie says that she's been diving into the asteroid belt too. Remind me on Discord, tag me and be like, yo, tell me about those asteroid books you got, and I will tag one of the books. The other book, my dad got it for me for Christmas because it was like going to be expensive. I thought it was like going to be $150. He's like, oh, I found it so cheap. Yeah, he found the Amendium, not the book. It's like the little extra edition. Okay, as I was saying, we're going to go over here now. You should be able to hear me. Okay, we're good. Okay, so this is the first. Today, as we meet, it is the 3rd, but I do want to kind of just cover some of the things that have already happened because several of them are pretty significant. So if you look on the calendar on the 1st, we actually had Mercury enter Aquarius. Right here, it's at 29 degrees, but it goes into Aquarius later that day. We also had the Sun conjunct the Sphinx asteroid. It was also in play during the new moon on the 2nd. And we talked a lot about how the Sphinx is there with riddles, but like deep mystical insight. It protects like forbidden knowledge. And so you have to pass these initiatory like tests, I guess, but in the form of like riddles and puzzles and like illusions in order to unlock that. And so the fact that 1, the month kicked off with that, 2, we had a new moon on the 2nd here at 12 degrees, the sun and the moon aligned with that point as well. So that kicked off a new 6th month story of this riddle. So it's not really going to make sense until Cancer season, until the summertime, when we have our full moon here. That will be when the answer, although a lot of the riddles aren't going to have answers, the insight will be illuminated. So don't expect to understand it now. Like kind of like dive into the realm of the unknown. Like embrace the riddle, embrace the puzzle, and know that it's probably not going to make sense for quite a while. On the 1st, the moon also transits the galactic center. So while we have Mercury entering Aquarius, where it will be stationing retrograde soon, we have the sun conjunct the Sphinx kicking off this like 6th month riddle. We also have the moon, our closest psychic intuitive body, transiting the galactic center on that day. So on the 1st, it was over here. Earlier, this is 6 p.m. So on the 1st, it transited the galactic center. The same time those transits happened. So that's where this insight is coming from. We have 2 very strong alignments happening this month in here in Sagittarius. Mars will be transiting both the Great Attractor and the Galactic Center, and the month kicks off with the moon aligned with the Galactic Center. I see it as like a psychic, like the moon, like the month is kicked off with like a psychic, like a, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like I literally, the only thing in my brain is like a kick in the ass. And then I see us being kind of like lit on fire later this month when Mars aligns with both those points, like sparking it. The moon is there to like start to like wade into the waters, I guess is kind of where I want to go with that. We're starting to like wade into these waters. And when Mars comes is where we're going to have these like big initiatory, like galactic, I don't want to say upgrades, but like influxes of energy. There, that's where I was trying to go with that. Influxes of energy, the same time that this riddle is forming, this 6-month riddle. And so it's almost like this riddle is not a trickster riddle. It's not to confuse us, it's to help us unlock this pre-conscious realm, because Mars, our primal consciousness, is going to be transiting both the galactic center and the great attractor. Those are sources of super consciousness. The sun, I say this all the time, but this is the best way for me to explain it, and so you guys will hear me say this a million times. The earth revolves around our sun. The sun is our solar conscious, it's our egoic conscious, it's like our closest conscious body, right? But the sun has a sun. The sun and all of the stars in the Milky Way revolve around the galactic center, right? That sits right here. That is a form of super consciousness. It is more evolved than a sun. It has lived longer, and now it has suns rotating around it. It is something greater. It is a larger cosmic logos. We then have the galactic center and a multitude of other galaxies rotating around the super galactic center, which is our next greater cosmic logos, which sits here, square that point at 2 degrees of Libra. And then the largest like source of super consciousness for this like greater cosmic mind that we are a member of, that we know of, other than the whole like cosmic web itself, is the great attractor, which sits here at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. That, even Muggle astronomers, many of them believe is like God. It is us merging back with source. We're all being pulled towards this point, and it is a source of either pre-consciousness or super consciousness. It's the literal unknown, but it is the strongest gravitational point in our sky. And our sun, our moon starts off the month aligning with these points, like aligning our intuitive psychic senses with it, almost like preparing us for the Mars initiations that will happen later. There, that's what I was trying to say. Okay, I'm glad that came out. Okay, so I'll give you the dates when we get there. Yesterday was our Capricorn new moon. You guys over on Patreon, we talked so much about this. I'm not going to dive too much into it now, but I guess to sum it up, I would say that we kicked off a 6-month story. A new moon is a 6-month installment, right? We plant seeds that culminate 6 months later at the partner full moon that we then harvest, and then we have a sort of like release and purging moment. And this is in the sign of Capricorn. So look and see, what house does Capricorn fall in your chart? That'll be the area of a focus. If you have that apprentice cheat sheet, you can look to that for a little bit of insight. If you don't, you can Google it. So like, let's say that that Capricorn falls in your 7th house. Just Google 7th house astrology and tons of stuff will pop up and you can read it and then you'll know what that means. Capricorn is a paradox, and we talked very heavily about how it is a paradox and how it is both the archetype of the wise crone woman there to bestow this like primordial wisdom upon us, and also this like devouring, authoritarian, dominating father archetype, and how we live in a realm of duality, and we do have a say on the archetypes we choose to place upon the stars. But just because we choose a different archetype doesn't mean the other one doesn't exist. So, other cultures look at planets and constellations as completely different things. It doesn't mean that what they believe is not accurate and doesn't manifest in their reality. like people in India are not talking about Kronos, you know what I mean? They're not talking about Saturn and Western mythology. They have their own interpretation, and in the East, it's actually associated with Kali. Saturn is in Capricorn. Um, we talked about how it has an ascended archetype of the unicorn, which is something we're going to be diving much deeper into for our Cancer full moon, which actually aligns with the unicorn constellation later this month. And we talked about how to kind of find a middle ground between all these polarized extremes that are manifested by Capricorn in general. But Capricorn is all about climbing our personal mountain. We have a couple of different mountains in our chart. Everybody has a 10th house, the top of their chart that they're climbing to, that their incarnation is climbing to. Capricorn rules the 10th house, so it rules the top of the zodiacal chart. But your chart, unless you're an Aries rising, isn't going to look like this. A different sign is going to be up there. And so I would look to see what's up at the top of your chart, what are you climbing towards, and also where is Capricorn in your chart? What house does that govern? Might give you some insight, particularly to what this month is going to be about, because that is the sign of focus. And then look to see where your Saturn is. Where does Saturn fall in your chart? And do a little bit of Googling. Let's say your Saturn's in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius in the 11th house. What does that mean? These are your karmic initiations. These are the places where you are climbing your mountain. Also, look at your North Node too. That's another sort of like point that we are climbing towards. And Capricorn helps us to take responsibility and develop some sort of system of organization or like dependence. And I'm laughing because I know this is what I need to do right now. Poor Eddie is in there doing all the laundry. Like my house is a total mess right now. And I've been focusing so much on Capricorn's like career and purpose aspect because it also governs that. And you know, during Capricorn season, you have a Cancer moon, and Cancer governs the house and you know, like the laundry and the dishes and all of the things that like you're supposed to do that right now like are not getting, well, they are getting done, but only because Eddie, love you, babe. Eddie's in there doing the laundry. But yeah, so it's about finding that sort of balance. And when we have that full moon later this month, this Cancer full moon, it will be in opposition in those signs that govern our purpose and our career and our home life. And so we are being asked to find a balance between the two. And yesterday we also had Mercury in its shadow period preparing to station retrograde the next week, trining the North Node. And so that is giving us some insight into where we are kind of headed, where we've been, this Gemini Sagittarius eclipse cycle, the past 18 months, all that's been shifting there, some sort of like clarity when it comes to that, and also maybe a little sneak peek of where we're going. So really quick, before we continue on, I want to address something that I wasn't even really aware of. So I always forget that there are multiple ways to calculate these mathematical points. So I'm not sure if you guys know this, but the North and South Node are like not real points in space. They're mathematical calculations of where the moon and sun's orbit cross. Also, Black Moon Lilith is not a actual like thing in space. Some people think she's an asteroid. She's not an asteroid. There is a Lilith asteroid, but that's different. She is also a mathematical point. She is the moon's apogee, the farthest point in the moon's orbit, like her literal repressed shadow. And softwares, certain softwares will change the degrees. So I've noticed I have, like I said, I have multiple astrology softwares. Lilith shifts, and it threw me for a loop once, and I remember diving into that and finding out that there are multiple ways to calculate it. And of course, there's no argument as to which one is accurate, but I'll be off by a couple of degrees. And for me, it literally changed signs. And so I was like, what is happening? And then the nodes. So I had seen on an astrologer friend's page that she was saying that the north and south node are shifting into Taurus and Scorpio on the 18th. And I was like, what? I was like, they're already there. I was like, they've been there since the 22nd. And I did some Googling and I found like the stuff to back up what I was saying. And then throughout a conversation and some more Googling, we realized that there are two ways to calculate the nodes. And again, there's an argument as to which one is accurate. And apparently this software has the default for the mean node, which is like a mathematical average of the nodes. The mean nodes are always traveling in a retrograde fashion. And then there is something called the true node, which is apparently true where the nodes are. And sometimes it's retrograde and sometimes it's direct. And some softwares have it as a default, but some softwares have this one as a default, and I can't figure out how to change it. So on this calendar, I have both dates for certain conjunctions to these asteroids here, because there's a different date for the mean north node and south node, and there's a different date for the true north node and south node. I think I want to switch this to the true one, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. And that's an after Mercury retrograde type of a vibe. So really quick, I wanted to address that. On the 3rd, so my nodes are already in Aquarius, Taurus and Scorpio. But technically, I guess they don't transit in until the 18th. So we're just going to pretend like they're still over in Gemini and Sag, okay, for the sake of argument. Today is the 3rd. So Jupiter squared the north node today. That gave a beneficial, Jupiter is one of our benefics. He's here in his home sign of Pisces, at home with Neptune, both at home in Pisces, so he's happy. He's really expressing his buoyant vibes, right? And Jupiter is always there to add some sort of benefit. Astrologers will say that Venus and Jupiter are astrology's benefics, and so they're always there to add benefit to transits. And I would say that is kind of true, but sometimes Jupiter just likes to like expand anything he touches. So if it was like a more volatile transit, he could just blow things up. But this one is pretty, and he's just kind of there to help add some inspiration, some Piscean creative, intuitive inspiration. This could very well have been like coming through the dream space or just that like deeply creative realm. But that square to the north node, that's a trigger, that's an action. Some sort of action is being taken. Some sort of like maybe more philosophical or metaphysical. Maybe we're deciding to dive into some sort of new studies or expand our mental horizons in some way. Or maybe we're just going through the flow and really trying to like experience this riddle that we're living right now. But that was the same day that Mars came into alignment with the Great Attractor, that point of super consciousness, right? The one that is as far out as we know of, and we're all kind of being sucked towards. But I guess according to dark matter, we're as fast as we're being sucked in that direction, we're also being pulled in that direction because the universe is expanding. So where we are at here, Earth, we won't get pulled into the Great Attractor, but we also probably won't survive the Andromeda Milky Way collision. And our sun goes supernova in like 5 billion years, so like we won't be here that long. Follow me for more positive affirmations. I'm just kidding. Okay, so tomorrow We have two really profound fixed star alignments happening this month, one through conjunction and one through opposition. So tomorrow on the 4th, the sun will be at 14 degrees of Capricorn. It's actually going to be exactly opposite Sirius. The next day, it will conjunct Vega Lyra. We talked very heavily over on Patreon about both of these stars just a couple of days ago, so I'm not going to get too deep into it now. But in short, Vega is connected to music, the arts, inspiration, all things magical and artistic, and cataclysm. Vega was the pole star around the time of the last ice age and the fall of Atlantis and probably the flood. It's around the date that like Graham Hancock and a lot of other researchers have zeroed in on as the ending of the last ice age, the Younger Dryas period, and the flood, right? And Vega was the pole star around that time. And so it's aligned with that like ancient knowledge of what came before. And so it remembers it, and it's anchored in it. And so hopefully it's trying to learn from it. And it does that, and it processes it, like the trauma connected to that, a lot through music and the arts, particularly music, because Vega is the main star in the lyra, in the harp. Also, according to UFO lore, which is like the best word I have for it, during the Great Galactic War of the Gods, we blew up a planet, or like humanoid life, blew up a planet that revolved around the star Vega. And then said humanoid life then spread out through the cosmos and eventually ended up seeding planet Earth. And so it is supposedly connected to that realm of cataclysm as well, and that like repeated cycle of like colonization and destruction and colonization and destruction. And so ideally when that star is aligned, we can maybe sort of like grasp that archetype a little bit better, see it in our reality, and also maybe how we will navigate it. The same time that star Vega is aligned, whether that be through conjunction or opposition, every time that star is hit, so is Sirius, because they sit exactly opposite each other. Sirius is right here at 14 degrees and Vega is right here at 15 degrees. They're an axis, and even as the stars move, they continue to move with each other, so they will always be opposite each other. And if you guys have followed my work for a while, you know that I say Sirius is the star that helps us see. It's the next star out there. It's the brightest star in the night sky. It's not the closest star. Alpha Centauri is actually the closest star. But it is the brightest star. And it is revered from all ancient cultures. And it really is our first step out of this solar system and into the greater celestial system. And it is very much connected to initiation into cosmic consciousness, and the ability to see, like illumination. It is connected to I've been working with the star for several years now, and I follow its transits, obviously, just like this, and I have for years. And what I have noticed is every time Sirius is activated, anytime a planet aligns with it, whether it be through conjunction or opposition, particularly when the sun does in July. The best way I can explain it, and I've said this a million times, and I'm just going to keep saying it because it's the best way that I can explain it. It's like sleep is wiped from our third eye. Just a little bit more, just one more layer. And like what you already saw and could see, you can see just a little bit more of, and it makes just a little bit more sense. And this happens in cycles where things just start to make a little bit more sense. And this month we have that Sun opposition to Sirius, the same time that we have Demeter, which is another archetype of Sirius, which is on top of the North Node right now, in alignment with Sirius, which is another archetype of the Divine Mother. Sirius is Isis in Egyptian mythology, and Demeter is the Earth Mother in Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Greek. You know what? They're so merged with each other. I often mix up which one goes with which. I think it's the Greek one, Persephone, because it's Demeter and Persephone. It's the Greek one. Okay, so what are we trying to see, right? What is this helping us to see? We have Venus conjunct Pluto here in Capricorn right now. We have the Sun on top of the Sphinx and Vega, and so it's aligned with that like the past, the riddles and the knowledge of the past, Sphinx, right? And what is missing? What are the clues that are missing? What do we not know about, right? What needs integration? This is an opposition. This and this, they're in opposition to each other. They're seeking balance and integration in the middle. And what's in the middle? The earth. The earth is here in the middle. Us, we're in the middle. And so we're trying to integrate this often very masculine, even though I've been arguing that this really is more of a feminine sign and is an earth sign, Capricorn, but it rules the father, it rules the patriarchy, it rules authoritarian dictators, it rules the dad, right? It rules the system. And the feminine is what is sitting behind here, right? It's what's sitting in opposition to that. And so that is what I think this illumination is going to be about. We are at the tail end of winter, right? We're heading into spring, which doesn't start until March. We still have to transit through the last 3 signs of the zodiac. We still have to finish this quest on this mountain and the abyss. We then have to return into the collective with whatever the fuck it is we learned. Saturn is there. We are going to have to pass some tests and pay some karmic debts in the process, but we owe something to humanity as a whole. We have to do that last part of the hero's journey where we return with our knowledge, right? During Aquarius season next month, we're going to have a Leo full moon. That's finding ourself in the collective, being that light Leo full moon. The illumination is happening in the sign of Leo. The culmination is happening in the sign of Leo, the sign of the self, the sign of personal self-expression. And so it's being that light for the collective. And then we go into Pisces season with both of Pisces home rulers there, and we merge back with literally the boundaryless cosmic womb before we're birthed anew as that like next incarnation of the hero, ready to do it all over again and from a higher perspective, because we have learned so much and we've integrated so much more mysticism and magic when we merged back with Pisces. That's where we really are delivered the gifts that we're working for right now. So we're just bouncing all around, guys. I'm just seeing what's comes through this month. Like I said, I've been diving deep over on Patreon, and I needed a break for this one. You guys know I'm a little obsessive compulsive, so if I'll dive in and then we'll be here forever. Okay. We talked about Vega Lyra. Okay, so let's go to the 8th. On the 8th, the Sun will exactly conjunct Venus retrograde here in Capricorn. So look, you should have already kind of looked to see where Capricorn is in your chart. This is what the focus of this month. This is the focus of that new 6-month story we just started. This is also the focus of the Venus retrograde cycle we have been in, where we've been completely reconfiguring or refocusing or refining or any other reword that seems to fit, because that's what retrogrades are for. They're here to travel back over already trekked territory and focus a lens on something so we can see what we missed and integrate it, understand it. And Venus is the planet of our relationships and our values, and also money. Particularly while here in Capricorn, it could have a lot to do with finances. It could have a lot to do with finances in regards to your career, or like big business or big banking, or like even like crypto, or like maybe I would think crypto would be well, because Uranus and Taurus right here is really a big crypto transit. I don't know, but it could have a lot to do with money. But really, the way I'm reading it personally is a shifting in values, and it's like a deeply transformative shifting in values because Pluto is here too. But retrogrades, particularly when we're having all these weird Sphinx energy and all this heavy Piscean energy, Jupiter and Neptune transiting through Pisces, we are in a dream. Like, you're going to hear me saying the words mirror realm, reflecting. We are in a symbolic expression of reality. Nothing is going to make sense, but everything will make sense if you can learn to read the symbolism and like embrace the riddle. I don't know. I guess that's how I'm explaining it. But you guys probably, the dark journalist uses this word like apotheum, where like nothing really is as it seems. And I feel that the Piscean transits, especially now that Jupiter is there, really expanding that, is going to make that much more prevalent. And we have had Venus retrograde, and so things are not really making sense on the forefront of all the things I just listed: values, relationships, whatever. But the sun coming up to conjunction with that on the 8th, that is clarity. That helps us see. The sun will help shine light on that. It's not going to fully make sense until Venus stations direct on the 29th, and then honestly finishes traveling the area it already had. And that won't be until later in February. So it's another one of those like ride the wave type of scenarios. But the same day that the sun conjuncts Venus retrograde, helping us to kind of see whatever this retrograde cycle has been about. Again, look to see where this falls in your chart for insight into that. The moon transits Chiron. So our closest psychic body, our intuition, our psychic senses, our emotional waves, our deeply lunar energies that are like aligned more with like the ebbs and flows of like cycles, like Pluto, death and rebirth, right, is aligned with Chiron. And it's actually, it's in a wide square. It's in a wide square, but it's still square those points. And so it's forcing action. Squares force action. And this action that's being forced is in order to integrate these like deeply core wounds. And we're on a new Chiron cycle. Chiron is now direct. And so these are ones maybe we haven't scratched down enough to really see or understand. We have worked through a lot, and we've stepped into a whole new level when it comes to Chiron. But now something new is like festering and coming to the surface, and this like traveling of the subconscious realm, the diving into the abyss later this month for the Cancer moon, the trekking through the mountain, the traveling through the forest, these are ultimately to help us find what those wounds even are in order to integrate. But some sort of action will be taken. It's going to be on a Saturday. So, you know, that is when we are more with our loved ones. But some sort of action in order to heal these like deep core wounds that are triggering, because this is a square. So expect maybe some conflict. Conflict creates the tension that we need in order to take action oftentimes. These are cardinal signs, and so it could be very swift. But Mercury which has in station retrograde, will be sextile Chiron at that same time. It will actually be exact the next day on the 9th. So it's lending aid. It's lending aid. And it's also kind of like taking the baton as well. I like to think of when these planets meet up like that, especially before they start their like retrograde. I think that they're kind of like taking the baton from the work that that other planet just did, and then like using that knowledge and wisdom for like its mission, its quest, right? And Mercury is about to start a quest in this sign in Aquarius. So look to see where that is at. These are the two signs that are going to be the biggest focus this month. And so Mercury will be sextiling Chiron, and so our mind, and it's like our higher like awakened mind, because it's Aquarius, right? So it's the final air sign. It's the evolved mind that is past the gates of Saturn now that Uranus has been discovered, and is starting to expand outward, right? And Mercury is there right now. So that's our logical, analytical mind, our more closer, like human mind, right? And so it's merging both of those things together in order to kind of make sense of whatever it is the moon just felt the day before, whatever it is the sun just illuminated here in this Venus retrograde cycle. Mercury's kind of like, okay, I see that, and I'm going to keep that in mind while I do my trek backward, because these are clues to said riddle. And Mercury, if anybody is trying to find the answer to this riddle and understand it, it's Mercury. I would say also Jupiter, but because he's in Pisces, he could care less. He'll just live in the riddle. He'll just be like, this is my reality now, and I love it. Mercury's like, we're going to look for the clues. And we're probably going to get out some push pins and some red string, and we're going to tie them together, and I'm going to solve this riddle. So I think that Mercury retrograde, this Mercury retrograde is going to be, it's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be a lot of the collecting of the knowledge needed to uncover whatever sort of ancient mystery riddle is like exposing itself to us. But it's exposing itself to us from the depths of our subconscious, which luckily is being illuminated later this month. Okay, we're gonna skip a couple of these easier like sextiling transits. On the 10th, the sun will sextile Neptune. That's some mystical, magical energy that's coming through. It's very creative and artistic and intuitive. If you're looking for a day to possibly like paint or create or like channel anything creative or imaginative, that would be a good time. The moon also transits the Andromeda vertex. So the moon will transit the black hole at the center of the Andromeda galaxy. And so that is another outside source of that like cosmic consciousness, that evolved solar consciousness that now is a black hole, and it's independent from our Milky Way, and so it has this different energy about it to bestow upon us, and it's deeply feminine in nature. Okay, so if you noticed on this chart, we talked earlier about the mean node and the true node. I have these written down for both. I normally wouldn't really care. It's only off by a couple of degrees, but because, I mean, the mean node and the true node are only off by like a couple of degrees, but because the nodes are changing signs this month and I want a specific date for that, I kind of care. And because they're changing signs while in conjunction to these asteroids that we've been talking about so much over on Patreon, I also want to know those exact days. So I put them both on here because I'm a little bit crazy. Oh, Mars will square Neptune on the 11th. Before we get into this Atlantis conjunction I'm going to touch on, let's just touch on that. Mars is our driving force. It's coming up to a conjunction with the Galactic Center, which will be exact on the 20th, and about a week later, right? And so it's already been activated by the Great Attractor, and it's coming into conjunction with the Galactic Center. But it will be in a square to Neptune in its home sign of Pisces. So it's in its turf, right? Neptune is the planet of illusions and confusion. We also have Mercury about to go retrograde. So whatever sort of spiritual insights or downloads or energy comes through this transit is going to be extremely like cryptic. The whole month is a paradox. Like, I've been talking about this a lot. I've really been talking about this since we entered the equinox and we've entered into this dark half of the year. How we have really been navigating different aspects of the subconscious, unconscious, pre-conscious, and collective unconscious realm, and the shadow realm as well, and our own projections, which all are like different manifestations of this dark half of the zodiac, right? So these are things that we've been saying, and we're kind of at the tail end of this before we enter spring, and things really do shift after that. So Mars coming into these galactic alignments the same time that it squares Neptune is really going to make them not entirely make sense. I guess what I'm trying to get here is don't take it literally. Like, do not take it literally. Think of everything that comes through as completely cryptic and symbolic in nature, more metaphorical and allegorical than literal. And Mars and Sag wants to take it literal, like totally literal, and like go gung-ho on whatever sort of belief or insight or knowledge just came through, and like push forward with it as like a warrior for this new truth. And that would be a mistake. You would be missing the whole kind of thing that's happening right now. You'd be missing the whole story. You'd be missing what this was all about. So in summary, lean into the illusion, I guess. We really are going to be there all year as Jupiter transits Pisces. We're in the dream, you guys. We are semi-lucid and attempting to navigate it. But like the card I pulled over there, we have now made it to the pathless path, and there's nowhere to really follow. We are pushing forward. We are creating our own path, and it's not going to make sense. It's just not. Okay, so on that same day, Atlantis, which is here, will conjunct the South Node. That is the mean South Node. It conjuncts the true South Node on the 16th. So really from the 11th until the 20th, both of these nodes, whether it be the mean or the true, will be transited by both Atlantis and Pandora, accessing that like past point, that point of karmic past, right? It's also very much associated with the shadow. This is the dragon's tail. It's the deeply repressed parts of our history. These are the transiting nodes. They are not our personal nodes. This is our collective history. It's in Scorpio, so it is in the depths of all that is secret. It's literally in the signs of that governs secrets and the mysteries. So while simultaneously a lot of karma and repressed secrets, Atlantean secrets, or just past civilization secrets are going to be bubbling up to the surface, and the karma connected to that, so are all of the mysteries and all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom that point holds. And it's in Scorpio, so we have access to everything, all of it. And the nodes really just got here, and so this is the start of an eclipse cycle. The nodes are transiting into this sign, conjunct Atlantis and Pandora. That gives us insight how whenever the nodes shift into a new sign, whatever aspects they're making to anything, that gives you an insight to the entire eclipse story. Like, what is this whole thing going to be about? How did this kick off? And it's kicking off with the South Node, the past, aligned with Atlantis, and the box of secrets, opening and expelling all of that is repressed. And the North Node is aligned with the Earth Mother and her daughter. So it is aligned with both Persephone and Ceres, her mother, another manifestation of Demeter, which is currently aligned with Sirius. And so the North Node is the hard path, it's the pathless path, like I was just saying. The North Node is the path with no trail. We haven't gone there yet, especially in your own chart. If you look at your own chart, your South Node is very comfortable place. It is where you can easily fall into. It holds so much knowledge and wisdom for you, all of your gifts, all of everything that you bring with you, your soul brings with you, and all of your habits and your bad behavior and your bad habits, your karmic patterning that you repeat over and over and over again that you need to break free from. And if you lean too far into your South Node, like you're not doing what your soul came here to do. You're just kind of repeating what you've already done and you're stuck. Your North Node is where you're supposed to venture to. It's your personal quest that you have to trek towards. There's no path towards it. It's hard, and we have to go there step by step as destiny helps guide us, and we lean into our fate and our mission and our purpose. And right now, the North Node, so what we're supposed to be working towards, is aligned with the daughter maiden in the underworld who's traveling her way back home to the mother. It's these repressed feminine aspects finding themselves, all of these pieces of themselves, like that asteroid belt, one by one by one, until ultimately we are whole. And so that's going to be a lot of what this eclipse story is going to be about. It's going to be in Taurus and Scorpio. That is a water and an earth sign. Those are deeply feminine in nature. And so it has a lot to do with the suppression of the feminine and the reclamation of her. And that same day, the moon transits Andromeda. So it just brings even more of that feminine energy to it, and this North Node, like where we're going. And it's the reclaiming and the restructuring of these fractured archetypes, because even these ones we're mentioning are not whole in and of themselves. Even Demeter as an earth mother, you know, we go back far enough, and there's Gaia, the actual earth mother herself, who's often forgotten about, who's birthed directly from the abyss itself. And so these are all many things that we've been discussing over on Patreon. Let's see here. On the 14th, Mercury stations a retrograde at 10 degrees of Aquarius. Look to see, what do you have over here? If you have planets here, Mercury, you're going to be feeling it. If you have planets in any of the fixed signs, if you have planets, especially around 10 degrees to, I'm not sure where he's transiting back towards. I don't have that written down. And it doesn't say that on here. So we're just not going to have that information. We'll have it next month when he stations retrograde. But I know he dips back into a Capricorn. So if you have planets between 10 degrees and 0 degrees of any of the fixed signs, so that is Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio, then that means those planets are conjunct, opposite, or square Mercury while he's retrograde. And that includes my Mercury. My Mercury will be square Mercury retrograde. It's one of the reasons why I'm trying not to go too hard right now, and I'm really trying to do some of these videos early this month because I'm just ready for it. I just know it's going to be a pain in my ass. But expect tech problems. Prepare for them. Say, if you are typing something and it is important, like please press save. Save drafts. Give yourself time. This can also affect any form of communication and also travel. So cars, if you're traveling distances or you're planning a trip, like expect the unexpected, especially if you have Aquarius placements. Like weird things are going to be happening. Maybe try to travel not far and prepare for any sort of upset. And if it happens, just tell yourself, this is what I have to tell myself. I'm like, okay, this is Mercury. What are you trying to show me? Like, what is it? And it's usually that I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now because something is wrong and it needs to be tweaked. And if I wait and do it later, whatever it was I was doing is better. Or I needed to pause and go inward, and I was exerting my energy too much in an outward fashion. Mercury retrograde really is when we go inward and reflect on everything, but particularly over like the past 2 weeks, what it is that we missed. We're really fine tuning that. I don't normally write on this calendar when the mood changes signs because there's just so much room. There's just not that much room on here. But I did write on the 15th that the moon enters Cancer. I did that for a multitude of reasons. One, it's entering its home sign, and so it's very strong there. Two, this full moon is going to feel long because the moon falls at 27 degrees of Cancer on the 17th. But the moon enters Cancer on the 15th. So for those 3 days, it's going to be like this whole building period to this huge culmination that's going to be happening on the 17th, the same day that Pandora exactly conjuncts the mean node, about a day after Atlantis conjuncts the true node, and the sun conjuncts Pluto. The sun conjuncting Pluto is an illumination in and of itself. We also have to remember that this is a collective illumination. So we are about a month out, a little over a month out from America's Pluto return, which will be on, I think it's exact on February 22nd, give or take a day. Last time I checked, I think it was a February 22nd. And, you know, that is a once in a lifetime, not even a human lifetime. That's usually a once in an empire's lifetime transit. They usually don't make it past that. And it's America's Pluto return. So Pluto is coming back around to where it was at the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. And the sun will be transiting it. And so we can expect to get some collective insight into what that means on like a macro scale. On a personal scale, this is going to give us some insight to the deep transformation that's been happening in the house of Capricorn in our chart. The sun will illuminate a lot of that like deeply platonic transformation, that alchemical work that's been doing. Expect some sort of like aha moment, right? But I'm looking at this more on the world scale, right? Before a Cancer full moon, Cancer rules the opposition to government in mundane astrology. Capricorn rules systems, governmental systems, any sort of authority figure, any sort of hierarchy. And Cancer rules the opposition to that. It rules the people, it rules the land. And we're going to have a Cancer full moon on the 17th, the same day that Pandora and Atlantis are conjuncting these nodes. It's a huge illumination and some sort of like release of information. This is also screaming release of information, insight into secrets, insight into repressed. This is the planet of like power and secrets and the sign of government and the system, and the sun coming up into alignment with that. It helps us see what is being done behind the shadows. And so I think this month is going to help us to see, but whatever we're seeing is not going to be the whole story. Because these planets, Jupiter and Neptune, are in this sign. It's like, okay, these rules film. These rule the illusion. They rule the script. And right now they are writing a beautiful fairy tale and many different scenarios are being floated out. And so it's going to be kind of hard to see the truth, but one of them will be. And so it's going to be a matter of navigating it. But Sun conjunct Pluto can see through the motherfucking bullshit. It can see through the bullshit more than Sun conjunct Pluto and also Mercury conjunct Pluto helps. See, I have Mercury conjunct Pluto in Scorpio. It's why I can dive deep. Sun conjunct Pluto is a similar transit. That's the sign of like the detective who can just get in there and see. So we're going to be talking a lot about the Cancer moon later this month. It aligns with the Unicorn constellation. It's in the depths of the subconscious mirror realm, but it is a light. It's like, you know, the Hermit card where he has the lantern and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go in a hermit period and I'm gonna like walk into the waters of my subconscious mind, and he like walks in with this like lantern. That's how I see this Cancer full moon, as a lantern in the depths of the abyss, in order for us to kind of see whatever the last 6 months have really been about on a personal level. Again, you want to look to see where Cancer falls to kind of see how this is going to be hitting your chart, but come and join us. I'm going to be diving very deep into this, and the concept of the unicorn and the forest and the castle on the hill and the sea. And we're also going to be symbolically interpreting the movie The Last Unicorn, which is based on a book. So maybe you read the book. I haven't read the book, but I have seen the movie like a million times. And we're going to be breaking that down because it is beautiful symbolism for what it is we're trying to see here. And I think that much of this Jupiter transit this year, especially with Neptune here, I think that fantasy and stories and music and myths and legends and fairy tales, this is going to be where most of our philosophical Jupiter, mystical Neptune, intuitive insight Pisces is going to be coming from. It's going to be coming from the realm of fantasy. And so I'm just going to lean into it. Okay, so we kind of talked about the next couple of days here. We talked about the Sun conjunct Pluto, all of these things conjuncting the South Node. Literally that box is open now. And now the karmic debts are being dealt. But also, like, karmic debts are not just bad, right? A lot of us are in store for some karmic gifts. But with that comes karmic retribution and having to atone for your own shit. And we're going to be shining a light into much of what is in the depths that we can't necessarily see. Let's see. On the 18th, Uranus stations direct. So this is going to be interesting, especially considering the Sun will be still conjunct Pluto on that day, right pretty much on top of America's natal Pluto. Saturn is still technically a square Uranus. He's starting to move off a little bit. He's at 3 degrees, but it's like a 3-degree orb. And now Uranus is stationing direct. And so that energy is coming more online. When Saturn, the planet of structure and authority and restriction and limits and laws and regulations in the sign of the collective Aquarius, so like all of these things were being put on humanity, he was kind of, and he's in his home sign because Saturn is the ancient ruler of Aquarius. So while these planets were squaring off, Saturn had the upper hand. He was in his home sign. He was happy. He was moving forward. He was on top, right? And Uranus was retrograde, and he's in Taurus. So he's already like, I don't like it here. This energy, it's fixed. I'm used to fixed energy because I govern Aquarius, which is also a fixed sign, but I'm weird and I'm erratic and I don't like it here. This is too grounded for me. And then he was forced to go retrograde and retreat even more inward into the body, into the physicality, into the sensuality, into this Taurian earthly realm. And now he stations direct. The same exact day in Taurus, the same exact day that the true nodes enter Taurus and Scorpio. So the North Node enters Taurus right on top of Ceres, so right on top of the Earth Mother, in Taurus, the sign of the physical Earth. And then Uranus is stationing retrograde right now. And so that is like an electric energy, extremely volatile, and rebellious. So I kind of see, we see this happening already. You might not because it's super suppressed, but if you are following certain random pages on the internet, which is really the only place you can see this stuff because the mainstream media is not reporting on it at all, many countries are already kind of up in arms, and pretty much fighting their police in the streets. You know, protests are going on all over the place. And later this month, the Sun and Pluto conjuncting America's Pluto as Saturn squares Uranus and Uranus stations direct. I don't know, man. And then the next month, in February, Pluto finally making it right up to that exact conjunction with America's Pluto. It's going to be rough. It's going to be volatile. It's going to be erratic. And I guess we just have to expect that. Now, look to see what house Taurus rules in your chart, because Uranus going direct there, it may be erratic, but it is an energy of liberation. And this is really going to help us to start these new chapters that this new month is really about, these 2 new moons, and liberate ourselves in some way. Liberate ourselves. Take some sort of ground back from Saturn and some sort of sovereignty. We'll be diving much deeper into that for the moon because it's literally the day after the moon, and so we'll be touching on that on the 13th for our full moon live stream. But Uranus, the ruling planet of Aquarius, stations direct the day before the Sun enters Aquarius. So the Sun enters Aquarius on the 19th, and trines the North Node. So the Sun will be entering the sign of the people, of the collective consciousness, of humanity as a whole, all of us together, still polarized, still have those 2 streams of consciousness, but it's all of us. It's our collective mind. And that Sun will be coming into a trine with the North Node, just as it entered a new sign. These are these new beginnings, and these are profound insights into what this might be. I would definitely pay attention, because so on the 19th, the Sun trines the North Node. This is giving us insight into what this next eclipse cycle is about. We've already had some taste of it. We've had eclipses in the sign Taurus, but it was just a little taste. It was just a little taste. The nodes hadn't even entered it yet, and now we're starting this like 18-month story, and the Sun coming into this trine is going to give us a little bit of insight to what that is. It's also very beneficial and harmonious energy, so it's going to give us that little like cosmic boost to start to head down said path of the pathless, right? This trail untrekked. And that's happening the same time as Mars conjuncting the galactic center. So that planet of action and drive is being pushed by this galactic, so you know those pictures of black holes where you see those like jets of energy shooting from the center? I see that like coming behind Mars, which is already our planet of action and drive here in this reality, and just igniting it and giving this like galactic push in order to do it. But remember, this happens in a square to Neptune. So whatever messages might be coming through will be askewed, but the energy behind it will be faded, and it will really help us to just take the steps we need to finish climbing this mountain and be there for the collective, right? Our personal karmic mission here in this life. This is where we are directing our energy over the next 18 months. This North Node in Taurus, this South Node in Scorpio, where are these houses for you? What house does Taurus fall in? This is where the North Node is. This is where you're really supposed to be focusing here. For new chapters are unfolding. This is the path untrekked. This is where we're supposed to be lending our attention towards. This is what the nodes, what the luminaries, the sun and moon, the eclipses, what they're working together, these fated portals that are opening of fate and destiny to push us on this path. And we're doing it collectively, but we're also doing it personally. And so looking to see what houses these are in your chart will help you know what your personal path is. Let's see. Okay, so we have Cosmic Kids on the 22nd. Okay, the 23rd, Mercury retrograde will conjunct the sun. So if nothing is making sense for you, what? Okay. Oh, because it's 6:24 p.m. Okay, so yeah. On the 23rd, Mercury retrograde will conjunct the sun. That will hopefully give us some sort of insight into whatever is going on in this Aquarius house and whatever this Mercury retrograde is about. Or it can really just come with some heavy tech issues and some heavy sort of like wire crossing. But I always like to kind of direct these archetypes so I have a little bit of say in how they manifest. I think that if you know what's going on, you can, because you know the cosmos are us, I think we can navigate things from a higher perspective if we know what's going on. So if we know that on the 23rd Mercury retrograde will conjunct the sun in the sign of Aquarius, and we have this opportunity for insight and clarity, but also maybe some sort of upset because Mercury is so involved and both of these conscious bodies are very close to Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. We can maybe try to take it easy that day and kind of go with the flow as opposed to trying to force anything, as opposed to maybe trying to schedule anything important on that day, and then try to see what comes through, what is illuminated. But both of these planets, the sun and Mercury together in that sign, is really going to bring something to the forefront of our logical, analytical, conscious mind in order for us to start to grasp what Aquarius is higher, more awakened, more cosmic mind maybe couldn't make as much sense of here in this reality. It needed to kind of pull it into that like mercurial and solar consciousness in order for us to be like, oh yes, I see what that is. So we're almost done, guys. On the 24th, Mars enters Capricorn. So you will probably be hearing like Mars isn't okay. So a lot of people who write posts on the internet for Instagram, they are not astrologers. Oh my God. I follow very few astrological pages online because you can tell these people are just copying things offline and they don't actually know what they're talking about. I mean, you can quote me on this. I know this is going to happen. Once Mars enters the sign of Capricorn, everybody is going to tell you, Mars is in Capricorn. He's exalted. Now is the time to go. Push forward with your ambitions. It's the new year. Push forward. Do all the things. You have all the motivation to be responsible and dependable and climb the mountain and do all the things. And like, please do not do that. Like, please do not do that. We have to be taking it easy. Normally, Mars and Capricorn, yes, that would be a thing to totally do. But we have to remember that Mercury is retrograde. And so anything that you run and start right now, you're going to have to redo. You're going to have to redo it. It's not going to be right. Something is going to be messed up and Mercury is going to make you redo it. So instead of just pushing to start all these new projects, like I guarantee you the internet is going to tell you to do, we have to lean more into the earthly, more grounded, relaxed energy of Capricorn, which is hard to do because Capricorn is not relaxed. Capricorn is very serious, but it has the ability to be grounded. It has the ability to align with that more earthly energy. And that's what we're going to have to do. That's what we're going to have to do in order to navigate this properly. Now, Mercury retrograde enters Capricorn the literally exact next day. So Mars enters Capricorn on the 24th, and then Mercury retrograde transits back into the sign of Capricorn on the 25th. So anything that you would have jumped to start with this Mars energy, Mercury retrograde is now coming to cause upsets, confusion, and just will make you do everything over again. So I think it needs to be more of like a learning process. Don't jump into anything new and try to start a completely new venture. See what Mercury is trying to get you to redo. What is something that you have already done that now Mars can come lend his energy to, can lend his action and his drive to, and Mercury's retrograde can come and refine. Do not start anything new, but try to redo something that's already been done, and it will come out amazing, because that's what these planets are trying to get you to do together. And this is happening simultaneously. So as Mars comes into Capricorn, and Mercury retrograde comes into Capricorn, Mercury trines the North Node. So what we're doing, all of this, whatever it is that you've designated to redo and fine tune and make perfect, is in alignment with this new North Node energy, that path that we're trekking that has no path, the path that we are laying before us, that path that we are leading for others to follow, right? The sun is in the sign of Aquarius. We aren't doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for a greater cause. Aquarius is the archetype of Prometheus. It is the ultimate quest for knowledge of thyself, but it represents a deep sacrifice. Prometheus sacrificed himself for human beings to have a fire, for human beings to have knowledge in order to free themselves from the grasp of the Saturnian system. And he was forever punished for it, having his liver just like picked out by a bird. And it was ultimately Chiron who sacrificed himself as an immortal who was deeply wounded already to take his place. And he took his place and ultimately freed Prometheus, ultimately freed knowledge. It was the wounds, the integration of the wounds that freed the knowledge for the people. And so we're ultimately doing this for a greater cause. And Mercury transiting the North Node is showing us what that is. And it's giving us the opportunity to track this path untracked. But we've already started part of it, is the thing. It's like a path. That's a good one. Okay, it's like we're in the Lost Woods. This is Zelda reference. This might be a good one. Okay, if any of you geeks played Zelda, particularly the Ocarina of Time Zelda from Nintendo 64, there is a point in the game called the Lost Woods, and you have to you go in, and there's all these different turns that you can make, you can go left, you can go right, and there's different rooms, but if you turn the wrong way, you just go back out, and you go back out where you came, back into the forest, and then you have to enter back in the Lost Woods and try to make the turns left, right, left, right. My kids have it memorized. They tell me how to navigate the Lost Woods. But if you get it wrong, you have to go back out and start over. And that's kind of what Mercury retrograde is. We've already been in there a little bit, and we've made a couple turns, and now we've got kicked back out, Mercury retrograde. And Mercury retrograde's going back in with the knowledge he already has. And he's like, okay, so I went left, right, left, and then I got kicked out. So now I need to go left, right, right, and I'll get to where I'm going. That's the metaphor I'm going and I'm sticking with. If you guys play Zelda, comment in the comment below. It was kind of a niche reference, but it's a good game. Okay, where are we at? 26th. Our new moon live stream for the Aquarius new moon, where we are going to be diving deep into the hero's journey, and the returning back home. So the returning back to the collective. We're also going to be talking a lot about Prometheus and his connection with Chiron as well. But particularly, I'm going to be focusing a lot on their hero's journey. For the Cancer moon, we're going to be talking a lot about the forest and the sea and the unicorn. It's going to be nice. Okay, on the 28th, Mercury retrograde, who is going back into the lost woods, right? He's gone left, left, right, right. He's gotten to where he's going. And now he's going to conjunct Pluto after the sun already did. Pluto is the planet of deep transformation, deep alchemical transformation, death, rebirth. You are something else now. You are completely transformed. Look to see what house Capricorn is in to see where this is going to be happening. But this is a transformation of our mind, of our outlook, of how we see things, of how we understand things. And that'll be exact on the 26th, the same time that the sun sextiles Chiron. And so these deep transformations are happening on a conscious level when it comes to our core wounds. And then just the next day, Venus will station direct. So we will start to travel back over that area, which is where the clarity comes. So this is how a retrograde works. A retrograde, from our perspective on Earth, the planet seems to be traveling backwards. So let's say Venus transited here to 15 degrees. Well, let's say Venus was at 15 degrees and it went retrograde and it transits backwards. So it transited that area twice and then it stations direct. Now it will transit that same area of the sky a third time. This third time is where the clarity comes through. So if you see a bunch of posts when Venus goes direct or Mercury goes direct about like, the planet is direct now, everything is in forward motion, clarity is here and blah, 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 like, and you don't feel that, that's because it hasn't happened yet. It doesn't really happen until Venus completely transits where it already has. So it will be stationing direct on the 29th and the integration starts. So from the 29th to, let's find out. I'm going to Google and see when Venus's shadow period ends. I should have looked this up. March 1st. So it won't be until March 1st that we really start to pre-shadow. Wait a second. Occurs on March 9th. Venus ends its, March 1st. 26 degrees of Capricorn. Okay. Yeah, so it's a slow process. Venus retrogrades are a lot longer than a Mercury retrograde. So don't beat yourself up and know a lot of the work has already been done. Venus stationing direct on the 29th, and now the integration happens. What was that all about? And it's going to transit back over Pluto, and so that will be when that deeply alchemical process, that death and rebirth, that huge transformation for Venus then occurs. It's happening for several planets right now. The Sun, Mercury, and Venus all over the coming months have transited Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. Where is Capricorn for you? Deep transformations are happening right here. And this, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even notice that when I made this chart. Okay, last 2 days, guys. On the 30th, the sun will square Uranus. So the sun in Aquarius, the sign that is naturally governed by Uranus, well, in modern astrology, in traditional astrology, it is Saturn, will be squaring Uranus. So we've been feeling all year this square between Saturn and Uranus. You guys have heard me talk about this all year. We had it 3 times. February, June, and December. And this is that conflict between the old and the new, and these power struggles between like liberation and domination, and this shift of like globalization you guys have heard me talk about. I'm calling it the New World Order transit. It's tied very heavily to the globalization of the world. And that's based upon another astrologer's research, but I agree. I very much agree. And it's tied, the cycle ends up closing around the year 2030. So it's tied very heavily to that UN agenda. But the sun, which is what helps us to see, right? So we've been kind of pinned between these two planets all year, Saturn and Uranus. The collective has been very much pinned between these, especially Uranus and Saturn. Saturn is a societal planet and Uranus is a generational planet. So these affect us more on a whole than personally. We're feeling this personally, but we're really feeling it collectively. And we've been pinned between these two. As you can see, humanity has literally split into two. Literally split into two. Half of us are Uranus and Taurus over here, ready to just go crazy and burn this shit to the ground. And the other people have fallen in love with daddy government. And then also on the flip side, many of us are starting to lean more into the Saturnian, like being our own authority figure, taking authority for a future Saturn in Aquarius, and leaning more into the traditional way of doing things, how we did it in the past, which is Saturn as well. While on the other side, people are leaning very heavily into advanced technology. The last time Uranus was in Taurus was World War II, when a lot of the Project Paperclip scientists were in Nazi Germany developing a lot of the things that are now being used to fulfill said globalization. But as you can see, these planets have multiple manifestations, and we are on, both sides of the spectrum. Well, the sun coming up to alignment with, in a square to Uranus, and then shortly after in a conjunction to Saturn, starting off the month of February with a conjunction to Saturn, around the same time as America's Pluto return. That's going to help us to kind of see what this is all about. It's also going to put a spotlight on it. And so it's going to feel almost like a fourth round of the Saturn-Uranus square. However, that's been manifesting in your chart and also here on a collective. And that's the battle between the people and the system and these new regulations and trying to find some semblance of how things were and trying to move into how things are going to be without losing ourselves in the process. And then on the 31st, we close out the month with the asteroid series finally coming into its exact conjunction with the true north node. So here it's off by a little bit, but my other software has the true north node. That's how I found it. And that Earth goddess will be coming into alignment with the North Node the same day as our Aquarius new moon, which we'll be diving heavily into. But this is a new chapter for us. And by us, I mean all of us. It's in a conjunction to Saturn. This is deeply karmic in nature. And this is a new 6-month story. I don't know where we're going to be 6 months from now, but we have an opportunity to plant some seeds around then. Hopefully it's about integrating these grounded, feminine, nurturing aspects that we are so lacking in our culture and finding some semblance of balance. But it will require us to dive into our own depths to find those within. And it doesn't matter if you are male or female, we all have these archetypes within us. So I did pull a couple of cards. I'm just going to go ahead and read those, and then we'll call it a night. Okay. Oh, wait. God, I'm such a hot mess right now. Mercury. Okay, so I put this picture here because I knew I wanted to not forget to mention a couple of things. So before we go into the cards, I want to just touch on this. So this is a picture of an older medieval layout of the astrological wheel. So the black planet, I can't point, guys, so you'll have to look. The outer glyphs are the signs. We normally have Capricorn at the top of a traditional modern Western tropical chart. This one is flipped, and it actually has Cancer and Leo at the top and Capricorn at the bottom. The glyphs on the inside, the black ones, are the traditional rulerships of the signs, and the blue ones are the modern planets that have been discovered since about the 1800s. We first started discovering these. Pluto's wasn't until 1930. But I just put this here to show you that we are, because a lot of people will be talking about Capricorn season, just the mountain, right? And how we're climbing, and ascending, and the direction we're going is up, 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 up. And it's like, yeah, but we're starting a new chapter when it comes to going up, that we're going to climb over the next 6 months, that will culminate at the Capricorn full moon 6 months from now. Our culmination is in Cancer. It's in the abyss. And so I was really focusing on the abyss this month as well, on the forest, on the sea, on the subconscious. And I just wanted to put that chart up there to show you that astrology is not set in stone. The basic systems that modern astrology is based off, they don't even depict the chart the same way. Here it's completely flipped, so it's kind of up for debate what is the top and what is the bottom. Okay, oh, and then there's a picture of the unicorn constellation there, which falls in Cancer in the depths of the subconscious, which is ultimately what we're searching for down there, is our light, right? The pole star is down there as well. It's this light in the abyss that is ultimately guarded, often by the dragon or some sort of monster. Okay, so these cards are just so perfect. These cards are so perfect. The first card that came out was the Forest. So the way I shuffled these, I was just trying to zero in on the overall energy of the month. We talk about so many different archetypes, right? But like, what is the key energy? What is the key thing to dive into this month? Where can we obtain the most? And what came through was the Forest. This card is so beautiful. I read this already. I usually don't read these before, but I did read this one. The Forest, the woods, the thicket, the jungle. Consider for a moment your earliest memory of the forest. It's likely it included all of the mythic dynamics of this archetypal space. A little fear, a little enchantment, perhaps losing your way, perhaps discovering a secret mystical treasure. Such is the magic of the forest. It requires first that you enter it, and then that you get lost within it. That is what I was trying to say that whole time about this Pisces energy. This Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, the only way to navigate this and really get what it's trying to show us is to get lost in it. And to know that you're living a dream. Like, to know that you're in a fantasy. Like, that is where you will obtain the most. Get lost within it. You may think there is a path to lead you straight through, but soon enough you will be on what is known the pathless path. There are tricksters here. Hi, Mercury. There are tricksters here. Dense foliage and entanglement. Oh, Pisces, entanglement. But equally present are the glimmers of fairy light and friends among the trees. You're on an adventure now, and there's no turning back. So embrace the dim light, the moving shadows, whether literal or imaginal. Brave the forest and get lost getting found. The hunter, the maiden, and the crone, which is an archetype we just dove into very heavily over on Patreon. The hunter, the maiden, the crone, and the shaman are regular appearances in the forest. Don't be surprised if these cards come up together. Let the narrative reveal itself. So these are all guides that might be coming through to you this month, archetypal guides. These are within you, but they could manifest as an outside person mirroring that back to you. But the hunter, the maiden, the crone, and the shaman. If you get out of the forest without feeling lost, you were only in a little grove of trees. The great archetypal forest requires we spend at least one night frightened for our life. When this archetype is evolved, it is magic abounds, childlike wonder, and adventure. When it's in its lower archetype, it is concealment, density, and savagery. I pulled one more card. So I got a new deck. Oh, by the way, I always forget to do this. You guys always ask me to. I think you guys might know this deck by now. But this is the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck. It is my favorite deck. I barely use the regular tarot anymore. Maybe sometimes for a client. But this is my go-to deck now. It's fabulous. And I just got this one the other day. It's new to me, but I am also liking it. This is called the Wild Harmonic Oracle. And no, it is not by the same people, but it does have a similar name. And this is split off into all different elements, the 4 elements, and then the celestial, the dimensional, and the shadow realm. I think one other one. But the one that came through is subconscious reflection, and it's broken up into a meditation and an inquiry. It says subconscious reflection, water of fire. As the flowing feeling of life ascends into the fire of will, light is cast into the ripples, and strangely enriching mirrors are found. It's that lantern I was talking about earlier. Meditation. Signs, omens, mirrors, and messages from the deeper self that enrich, protect, and guide my life. This is the art of recognizing that everyone, everything in my current awareness is a reflection of me. This is not to be taken objectively or judgmentally as facts, although it might be at times. Rather, see them as indications and points of inquiry for my dreaming awareness to play with and see what arises. My body is my personal interface with my subconscious, but my subconscious goes far beyond my body. This room I sit in, my near subconscious, I can sense it, only in a surface way normally, and must reach deep within to find where I can feel it, know it. This land I roam, even deeper into my subconscious, farther out of my cognition, yet deeply affecting me. This world and universe, farther and farther into my depth, hidden almost entirely from view, yet powerfully influencing me in every moment. Inquiry. What is life saying to me, about me, right now, through this experience that is before me? See, that's exactly what I said to ask when Mercury comes. What is it teaching me? What is it showing me? What is this weird synchronicity? But don't try to make too much sense of it. Like, try to get lost and follow the trip, man. Just embrace the trip. Embrace the trip, and then in 6 months, it will make sense. When you look back on it in hindsight, yeah. Have you guys ever gotten really high on some form of psychedelic or had a really intense spiritual experience that, like, in the thick of it made sense, but also didn't make sense? And then later, after lots of time had passed, when you look back on the symbolism that was coming through that you often took very literal at the time, because we do that, and you look back on it in hindsight, you can see what it was all about. That's what this is going to be like. When we have the Capricorn full moon in 6 months, you will look back on this time and be like, oh, I see what that was. But still really won't be until Jupiter enters Aries. While Jupiter is transiting through Pisces, especially coming up to that conjunction with Neptune, we are in a mystical, boundaryless realm of magic and fantasy, and it's wonderful, but it's ethereal and it's very hard to make sense of, so don't. Just get lost in it. All right, that's my advice this month. Get lost. Get lost and find yourself. Get lost and find yourself. All right, guys, I will see you on the 13th. On the 13th, the day before Mercury goes retrograde, I had it scheduled on the 14th. I was like, oh, we're gonna do the 14th. And then when I was making this calendar, I was like, no, we are not doing it on the 14th when Mercury stations retrograde, Ali. So we're gonna do it on the 13th when he's practically stationary, which isn't gonna be much better. So bear with me in the tech because I don't know, guys. I try, but me and computers, I don't really know what I'm doing. And then, so we'll meet on the 13th for the full moon, and then on the 22nd for Cosmic Kids, and then on the 27th for the new moon. So this month we meet 5 times. We have 4 videos because there's 2 moons. We have 4 videos, and then the Cosmic Kids. So that should be fun. All right, guys. Catch me over on Discord. Have a great night. Thank you for staying up with me. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you, Kylie, for all that help with the audio. It really helps. I know it's late. Most of you guys watch this the next day. Totally get it. I know a lot of you are in completely different time zones. But it does help when someone's here for the audio. Have a great night, guys. We will chat. And yes, can you pull some of those cards for us with your magical new deck, Kylie, when you have some time? I would love to see that. It sounds just adorable. The Sacred Seas deck, it sounds perfect for the Cancer moon. You should pull us some for the moon too. All right, guys, have a great night.